It is July 29th, and we still have no resolution with the Sixers and Quentin Grimes. Well, we kind of know what the holdup is. They can't agree on something.
Must be the money.
It must be. But today, based on an article written in The Athletic from Fred Katz, we'll talk about some anonymous executives and what their number would be. And then we'll see where we are at this point. Later in the game, of course, July 29th, of where we sit on Quentin Grimes, the Sixers, and the number and what that walkaway number may be. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast on this Tuesday, presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make your appointment today if need be. Along with Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens. Bree is the executive, of course, of the year, and she is the president of basketball operations. And back with us.
I was going to say, did you forget about me? I know I missed a couple shows here.
Back with us in studio.
Gang's all here.
It's Derek Botton. We're all back together, man.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a
And
while.
then Devon, Bree, and I are going on vacation in a few days. See you later.
That is correct. Great to see all of you in the chat. We appreciate it. Just to let everybody know, of course, we are here from 3 o'clock until whenever we're done, but we also have our film session tonight. So we do look forward to seeing everyone who was able to sign up and come hang out with us tonight from 6 to 8. Food, pop a shot, drinks, conversation, video work. It's all going to be done tonight, and we can't wait to see everyone here tonight as we give up our very first film session. Rick says, sorry he couldn't make it there tonight, but he'll be here in spirit. Rick, we appreciate it. Yes, you will be here in spirit. We do see you all at the time, though, so we appreciate you supporting as you always do. So, all right, let's get to it, man. And Kyle, the Fred Katz piece in The Athletic.
Yes.
Outlining, again, conversations with a number of GMs or executives, pardon me, and what things look like from their perspective of how they would handle this situation that Daryl Morey and Quentin Grimes are going through right now. Daryl Morey in front office. So how many executives were polled in this question?
I'll give everybody the basic rundown here. So Fred is doing this series on the big name restricted free agents. So that's Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, Cam Thomas. The stories for Kuminga and Giddey were already out there. So if you guys want to read those, you can do your research on those. The Quentin Grimes story just dropped. It was either today or yesterday. And so it's 16 NBA front office members, notably not employed by the Sixers in this case. So none of these, if you take Fred at his word, and I know Fred, he's an upstanding reporter. None of these 16 front office members work for the Sixers, and they were just asked very simply, what would you give Quentin Grimes? What does the deal look like in terms of the years and the dollars? So of 12 of the 16 said they would give an average between $12 million and $17 million. So right in the range that I think we have probably centered on. 15 mil has been a number that we've passed around quite a bit. Then there are the outliers on either side. There was one executive who said $30 million over 3 years, so $10 million a year. And I had to sit there and think, is this person employed by the Dallas Mavericks? Because it certainly seems like the type of deal they were talking about with Quentin last offseason. There was another executive or front office member, I should say, who was willing to go to 4 years, $75 million. So that's $18.8 million-ish. So it's over where Devon has said his walkaway is, I think, in the past, but it's under 19 and it's not quite at 20. And that's the highest end of it. Then there were another two stragglers who I don't know why they were separated. I believe they said they would give him somewhere around or under the non-taxpayer mid-level. So that's 14.1, just over $14 million. I think that's a pretty narrow band of salaries, other than the person who came out and said, I wouldn't give him more than 10 a year for 3 years. It's generally in the range we've been talking about. So now that I feel like Devon has really firmly established your 15 to 18 is kind of your band. Do you change that, Devon, having heard from all these front office people that's at the absolute high end for them. Does that make you think maybe my walkaway number should be 16 instead of 18?
No, because I think based on what we saw, because obviously we're all basing this, including the execs, are basing this off of production and what they think the player could be. And in this case, we're looking at him on a team that still believes that they can do something in the playoffs, and what they saw on a bad Sixers team at the end a year ago. They felt like it was, I feel like that's still good enough for where salaries are today, where we're not talking about Giddey or Kuminga and getting outrageous like the reports that we heard about Cam Thomas, but projecting out on a winning basketball team, if they are going to get back and bounce back to being that, he's going to be a big part of it. And I do think that that number is fair enough for him around that 18. Now, before we get into the qualifying offer part where he decides he wants to take that, or the shorter term deal of 2 for whatever, or even that they did mention 3 for 30, I think that's disrespectful, the 3 for 30, because I think he's better than that.
I think given that that's in the range of what he was offered a year ago, and then he had the season that he had, that's a really tough
and that's the point where you really get into the realm of like, he might just say, screw it, I'm taking the qualifying offer.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
But again, that's not on the table here. So that part is disrespectful because, again, I think he earned that. He bet on himself. He earned it. So I think that 18, Kyle, I'm still right there in that range. That 19, that 20, no thanks on that part. But for a guy who is a fifth starter, a sixth man, can also win you some games during the season when you're going to have guys out, I think that's fair enough. And then when Derek talks a lot about, is this a number that can be moved later on in a deal after maybe 2 years or so, and things maybe not working out for him here, he wants also out, but it's still a decent enough number that can be moved for a player within the salary cap structure 2 years down the line, where I think that number is decent enough. Yeah. And he's still only going to be 27 years of age, just hypothetically 2 years from now, if we're looking at that. So that's still my number, and I haven't moved off of that. How about you?
I think I'm still with you on that one. I do, this far into it, I do have the inclination to be like, you know what? All these other people are saying they're not willing to pay him that much. The market is what it is. There's in the back of your mind, you're like, let's get more aggressive, right? Let's challenge his will. But I think the issue right now for the Sixers and just this negotiating process is that it seems like they've been really far apart, right? I've said on the show many times, I'm not expecting it to move for a bit, and all the other intel from our friends like Jake Fisher, I don't know if Fred Katz has directly reported on this, but certainly he's talking to people about this. All the noise that's out there is like, this isn't going away anytime soon. And that in itself tells you there is a gulf between what the Sixers are willing to give and what Quentin Grimes and his representation feel that he's worth. So I do think that I would try to put at least a fair offer out there. I'm with you. I don't know that it's disrespectful, but I think it's you're endangering the relationship. I think if you're at this point saying, oh, you don't have any offers, so we're going to really lowball you. I don't think as the Sixers, though, you're incentivized to do much of anything in terms of movement on your offer. Yeah. One of the interesting things, there was a quote that an executive gave within the story, and they made this as a direct comparison. The way the cap is now, why would you spend $20 million on Quentin Grimes when you can get Gary Trent Jr. on a minimum? Shouldn't just sign young players because they're young. You've got to believe Grimes is going to develop into your starting backcourt with Maxey. So 2 things from there for me, and this informs my whole view of where you walk away. One, I think that's getting disrespectful comparing him to Gary Trent, because Gary Trent is not Quentin Grimes defensively. He hasn't defended anyone for quite a while now.
And by the way, Gary Trent was just making like 16, 17, 18 million not too long ago.
He wasn't. Now, we could talk about whether he was overpaid on that deal, but that's a different sort of player than Quentin Grimes was on both sides of the ball. I think the other part is probably more relevant, right? I think you draft a VJ Edgecombe strictly under the umbrella of this is going to be the guy starting next to Tyrese Maxey over the long term.
100%.
And if that's the case, the way that you get to paying Quentin Grimes what would be like the top of that market, right? Like the $18, $19 million would be, I think this guy can play alongside both of them, right? And so that's where it gets complicated for me. If they had drafted a forward or just like not VJ, maybe it'd be a little easier to be like, yeah, that's our starting two guard, and it's all positional fits and whatever. But I think because of where they're at, you have to believe they can play. He can play next to both of those guys,
right? Including Jared McCain, who's
right.
also,
and that's look. There are a lot of debates I thought were disingenuous about the pre-draft process and who people liked. How you're going to use all these guys and how it all fits together is certainly a fair criticism to make of where they're at and where they need to get to.
But I do think that they're all interchangeable, being able to be on the floor together.
Yeah. And Theo in the chat says, VJ gives you what you wanted in Grimes. Great. Having two VJs or two Quentin Grimes is not a bad thing at all.
That'd be a nightmare to play against as an opposing
team. It would.
Team.
If I have one concern, it has nothing to do with VJ or Quentin overlapping. Because 2 6'5" guys who can play both ends of the floor, that's a great problem to have. That's not even a problem. That's just a luxury. The only real question I have with the backcourt still goes back to McCain and Maxey. And that doesn't really impact, that's not going to be solved by letting Quentin Grimes walk. That's not going to be solved by bringing Quentin Grimes back. It's just that is a question we have to see play out. In terms of this, report and the GM survey, I think the biggest thing is it gave you a sense of where he will still maintain positive trade value. If 12 out of 16 or whatever it is, we're saying somewhere in a 12 to 17 million per year range, you're pretty confident if you give him, let's say 15 million per year, that's going to be a tradable contract. And I would say that window of tradability is probably slide a little bit higher than that. I would say probably like a 14 to 18 is going to be a tradable, just because, eventually you get to a point where the salary cap's going to rise. You're going to have fewer years left on the deal. The view, how that contract is viewed will shift just a little bit. So I'm still pretty confident that range we were talking about. I think when the offseason started, we were kind of more in the 15 to 20 range, but that's because we thought somebody out there might go and offer him, someone with cap space, Brooklyn, someone who could have cleared cap space. That hasn't happened. So look, I think we can get a little too caught up in walkaway price. If your walkaway price is 18 and somebody clears some space and offers him 19, are you going to not match? No, I'm probably going to match it. Ideally, I would like to get him in that 14 to 17 range now. I think you have the leverage to do that. That does shrink the window, maybe not of your walkaway, but of your goal of what you're setting as your goal. And I do think one thing that, Fred brought up in that article that another GM brought up, I always forget this because I have 14 different iterations of the collective bargaining agreement rattling in my head. But you can
too much stuff to remember, man.
You can use your mid-level exception as basically a trade exception now. So if you can get him under that, and typically, you would say all right, well, mid-level's 14.1. We'll start him at 15 or 16 just to kind of keep him happy. It's not really going to impact his trade value. If anything, it might help you match salary in a trade down the line. And that's all true, but there is something to you can just trade this guy into somebody else's exception that gives you a little more flexibility if you do want to make a move down the line. But even still, I don't think I would haggle over that because I do think, outside of him as a player, his value as a trade chip is massive. And specifically his value to help you match salary is massive. So I'm still kind of in that 14 to 17, we can call it 14 to $18 million starting range. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think he'll maintain trade value with that. And I think this article just kind of reinforced that.
I think something that the article reinforced for me is I'm not getting to 20.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no appetite for anybody in the league to give him 20, and there's you can't bid against yourself and get up to that range. He doesn't
have the leverage. So why would you give him a bad deal when he doesn't have the leverage to get it?
Yeah. And that's why we're still talking about it here on the 29th, because they're we're not doing that because there's no one. What do we always talk about? Why are you bidding against yourself? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. It's just I'm offering you this.
I think they actually are not bidding against themselves, and that's for Quentin's side. Right. That appears to be the problem. He would very much like them to bid against themselves.
That's what I'm saying. Normally we're talking
so they're
about
doing
those
a good
cases.
job of just holding the line.
Why would you bid
against
yourself? And they're not doing that right now. They're holding the line, and they're saying this is what we're offering. I hope we can come to a common ground, and let's see if we can get there. Unfortunately, right now, for Quentin Grimes and the Sixers? Well, Quentin Grimes, they have not gotten there yet. So as we talk about this, folks, and we continue to go through this, we'll talk about a few other things with VJ Edgecombe a little bit later. We'll get into a few other things as well later on in our news and notes also here. But right now, what's your walkaway number for Quentin Grimes as Kyle ran the numbers from the executive poll from Fred Katz's story? Where are you? Where do you sit on what you believe the walkaway number should be for the Sixers when it comes to the contract extension for Quentin Grimes? We'll tap into that much more when we get back on the other side right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Listen, everybody, not everybody gets to think about, am I going to take $15 million a year or $18 million a year? Or what's my walkaway number? You need help that's available, that's affordable, that's coming from people who are experts. Guess what? Ace Hardware Home Services does it all for you. So if you've got an outlet you said you'd fix last summer, Ace Hardware Home Services has the person, because they're not just the helpful hardware folks. They're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing and electrical to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. They bring helpful to your home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door, from Philly to the Jersey Shore. And like I always say when we talk about our friends at Ace, they are locals, right? You see Ace Hardware down the block, a couple, maybe it's just a neighborhood away.
What
right?
up, Ace?
The closest one. So you know they're people that are invested in their community. They want to make your house better by whatever means necessary, and they're going to get the job done on your time at a price you can afford it. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project.
All right, so I walked into my garage yesterday, and it felt like a sauna.
I got to tell you, Devon, this Philadelphia heat, especially coming off a cool period, no joke.
All right, so here's what I did. I got like 10 bags of ice, and I made myself an ice bath to stay cool instead of turning on the AC.
But why wouldn't you just turn on your air conditioning?
Well, I was trying to be energy efficient. Go green, go birds, right? And a little power dribble. Make sure I stay away from it.
Yeah, but, instead of icing yourself out, you could just check out Pico's energy saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work, and they cut down your bills.
Hold on. So no more ice?
Unless it's an ice cold beer, Devon, we don't need to talk about ice.
That makes a lot of sense.
So everybody just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. Don't resort to ice like my friend Devon over here. Boy, does it feel like a sauna out there today, Devon. I was standing out there talking to our guy, Charlie O'Connor from PHLY Flyers in the parking lot for a little bit today. And I said to him, I was like, we probably could have picked a better venue to have a conversation than standing out in the asphalt and concrete today.
They were in the dead sun of the parking lot, just standing there. And yeah, I was like, what's up, guys? Walk right into the building to make sure, because we got our Pico connection here. To stay cool. So, make sure everybody, it is very hot. I think one more day. Tomorrow's supposed to be really hot tomorrow too. So make sure everybody stays cool out there with all this heat going on right now. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. And it's great to see our good friends from Rothman in the chat. Predicting.
And two Golden Girls, man. Again, the Golden Girls showing up each and every
Blanche
day.
and Dorothy in there. They, regulars waking up from the nap, early in the day, so.
Getting ready for that blue plate special.
Exactly. That's what I was going to. 5 o'clock, leader right into it, 4:30, 5 o'clock. But thanks to Rothman for joining in the chat. Rothman is predicting a long-term deal. No qualifying offer for Quentin Grimes.
I said they're medical experts and contract negotiating experts, apparently.
They understand it. And so we appreciate Rothman there in the chat. So, all right. So, Derek, but the Gary Trent one, though, just to get back to that when Kyle read that comparison. I mean, to your point, when he had that early contract, making what, $16 million a year, somewhere around there. But then the market told him what he was for 2 consecutive free agent periods where he got the veteran minimum for like 2 years and low number.
Yeah. No, look, there you can definitely go out there and try to game the system and find undervalued guys. Like this has been part of Daryl Morey's thing is that I think I can get similar production. Like I'm not going to go out there and use my mid-level, let's say, and hard cap myself when I think I can go out there with a minimum contract and find something similar. Now this is a little bit bigger of a gap, both I think in terms of player quality and also in player contract, but I think the theory is similar. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the middle class in the NBA get squeezed a little bit. It's just tough to put too much resources in there. But when we're talking about essentially like a mid-level contract, and we're talking about a team that has no salary matching, and quite frankly, until you know for sure that VJ or that Jared and Tyrese can play together, that you know for sure that VJ is ready, a guy whose skill set you still need, I think you do pay it. I do think like I've been on this from the beginning, I think the trade flexibility is a massive, massive part of this. I think letting him walk and having basically just Kelly and Andre Drummond as your two matching salaries would put you in a really bad spot because this is still a team that has a decent amount of first-round draft picks they can trade, a decent amount of, quite frankly, valuable first-round draft picks they can trade. Not only the Clippers one, not only the swap, but also just your own one. I think there's people that are going to be wanting to short your future. So I think having the flexibility, if things go right, to have matching salary and be flexible at the trade deadline or even next summer, I think that's no small thing. So yeah, you could go out there and try to get but obviously there's a lot of volatility in minimum contracts. Like they might just not pick your team. The next Gary Trent might not pick your team. He might want to go to a spot where he's going to be featured a little bit more.
He didn't pick him the last time when it looked like there was an option. He went to Milwaukee.
You're not going to get the trade flexibility with it. I think you still have to, you can make that theoretical argument of should you be gaming the minimum contract market. I think you bring Quentin back though.
Yeah, listen,
I agree.
He's a good player who is not old,
still young and getting better.
In all these theoretical examples, he's not being massively overpaid, right? That's why we're talking about.
Yep.
There's got to be a line somewhere. You can't just say, "Oh, well, it's 1 million here." There will be a cutoff point. For me, I think it's. If it was 19, I think that's like the absolute highest I would go based on what we're hearing here from these people around the league. Derek, what's the number that pushes them into another pain point with the CBA, or like if they wanted to use the taxpayer mid-level later for whatever reason?
Yeah, so again, the taxpayer mid-level hard caps you at the second apron. That is $207.8 million. They're currently about $21.2 million under that. So anything over $20 million, it gets, anything over like, what is it, taxpayer mid-level, like 5.6, 5.7, something in that range. So, anything over like 16 would be tough to use the full taxpayer mid-level, but you could still use a partial taxpayer mid-level. So
so if you wanted to, if there was a particularly good buyout guy or something later in the season,
you could still theoretically find a way to dump someone like Kelly, like Andre, and create a little more.
The fans would love
that.
Yeah.
Both of them, at least one of them. Yeah, for sure. So, but all right. So looking at that number and where things could be, but what is the ultimate? Like we were talking about the 25 plus that was reported at one point where it was out there. Like he and Cam Thomas, you're hearing about those numbers and like, all right, come on, settle down. 25. In our chat,
Cam Thomas has no lack of confidence.
He has no chill. No, he's worth $200 million.
I respect it.
Yes.
Him going at Zach Lowe the other day or the other week was hysterical.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's ridiculous. So NBA J77 says 3 years, $54 million. So that's 18 per. Sounds fair for both sides with the team
Starts
option
at like 16 or
on
so.
The final year. We saw Gene in there earlier with his number. Someone else had somewhere around 18 as well. So it all seems like we're right in that area. So, I mean, look, this can just drag on until there's a date that they have to, all right, something has to happen. Training camp is upcoming. This can drag on. But you do want to see Quentin Grimes at some point just say, nothing else is available except for this offer from the Sixers that you're good with or that qualifying offer. If you had to guess, though, Kyle, would he be willing to bet on himself again?
Not if he has good representation.
I was going to say, I think if he's getting good advice, they would tell him, look, this team now, would just be like, all right, well, we can't get real trade value for him because he has a no trade, right? If he signs the or he takes the qualifying offer. So you don't have any incentive to pump up his trade value. Certainly you could argue he should get lots of time just because he'll be one of the best players on the team. But at that point, the Sixers are looking at it and you say, you're going to lose opportunities and probably a lot of opportunities to VJ Edgecombe and Jared McCain, right? Because the incentive structure there is all off. If you have Quentin Grimes for 3 or 4 years, that's a scenario where there are a lot of reasons to give Quentin Grimes a lot of opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's to showcase him, to potentially trade him. It's because he's a good player who can potentially help you win over that window. You want to develop him more, right? Because even though he's 25 years old, he's someone that has only recently been seen in a role where he got to scale up, right, and get all these on-ball reps. So they could be looking at it, if you have him long-term, as maybe this guy was just waiting for his opportunity to break out, right? You don't know that yet. But if he comes back on a 1-year qualifying offer and is essentially saying, like, I want to get out of here next summer and I'm going to prevent you from trying to make a trade with me in the short term, then all of a sudden it's like, the front office and the coaching staff are going to look at it and say, we'll devote time and resources elsewhere. And I think that ultimately hurts him, right? If he gets less time, if he gets less reps, if he gets less opportunity, then your earning potential next summer, I think, is worse than it is right now. So I think ultimately, I find it really unlikely that he would take the qualifying offer. I just think if he is operating in a place of reason, you look at everything in front of you and say, I can get a good, maybe not massive deal, but like a good, solid 3 for 45, 4 for 60, like whatever the deal ends up looking like. Take that money.
Yes.
You earn that money. You bet on yourself. You won. Know when to walk away from the craps table. That's the most important part of gambling.
And that number was similar to the Caleb Martin deal from last summer, right? Reportedly, from what Tim in DLLS was talking about before.
I believe so.
It was like, what was that, 4 for 36? That was the number, somewhere around there. So you bet on yourself and you doubled that, man. And you're good. Albeit for us to talk about somebody's money and how they like to spend their money and their lifestyle and all that stuff.
If you want to push for as much as you want to push for, that's great.
Get every penny.
I just think the options have shrunk.
Yes.
Don't put yourself in a position where you take money out of your pocket and then lose, long-term money. Now, look, maybe he could be an exception, right? Maybe he comes back next year and he's so good and the team is better that on the qualifying offer, he then somehow creates an even bigger market next summer. I just think in most scenarios, that's not likely to happen.
Yeah. No, and like in theory, you could understand the reasoning behind it, right? Become an unrestricted free agent. More teams have cap room. Maybe it's just a slightly better market for you to get what you want. But I think what you're pointing out in that the Sixers would lose so much of their incentive to play him is 100% true. And it's not like the Sixers, I don't think, would be like vindictive and be like, well, I'm not going to play you because of this. But if you take the qualifying offer, you're indicating we don't see eye to eye. I'm going to look to leave elsewhere. So why would they take time to develop you? Why would they give you priority over players like McCain and VJ? And also the no trade thing. When you sign a veteran signing a 1-year deal, you get an automatic no trade. You can waive that, which might make you think, all right, well, maybe he'll waive that so we can go somewhere else who wants to sign him. But if you waive that, you lose bird rights. So you really, there's no incentive there's no pathway out of there that truly makes sense. I do think his minutes would probably end up being cut. I do think that would hurt him a little bit negotiating next summer in free agency. So if you're not actually gaining negotiating power next summer in free agency, then why are you turning down all of this guaranteed money? Mm-hmm. And, I think there are very edge cases where taking the qualifying offer might make sense. The 330 that was brought up in that article by Fred.
Right. If that's what they're offering him, then I would say, all right, I think the qualifying offer is probably a fair.
Totally agree.
Let's say he came in, all right, asking for 30 out of the jump. Ask isn't really the realistic goal that they had in mind. Maybe he was looking for 25. You're only going to get 18. That sucks. That doesn't mean taking the qualifying offer is your best way out of that. Yeah. Maybe it means like you take like a 2+1 with a player option for the 30 or something like that.
It does sound like, and Devon and I talked about this over the weekend. it does sound like there's more smoke, at least in league circles, that this could be shorter term now. And there actually was within Fred's story. Fred had a quote from an exec that said they would essentially offer Quentin Grimes 2 options. One would be 3 for 48. So he said, I go a little bit up on the AAV, 16 million a year, but I'm only doing 3 years. Or I'll give you 4 years and I'll give you 15 a year. I'll give you 4 for 60. But I'm not giving you 4 for 64. Right. And so like that's a scenario you could talk through with him. Like, it just seems to me that Quentin Grimes wants way more money than the market is willing to offer. So it's hard to try to say, oh, maybe he should choose between X, Y, and Z, because those conversations are just not there yet. The weird thing about all this is that I have heard nothing that suggests the Sixers are any less confident about him being back, when, you know, sometimes these drag on and all of a sudden, even with like Josh Giddey or Kuminga, there have been other teams. It's like, oh, maybe they end up in Sacramento or maybe they end up here. With Quentin, it just seems like it's Philadelphia or it's nothing.
Yeah.
And they just need to hammer out a deal.
And look, we've been here before, right? We all understand that sometimes people have a higher sense of their self-worth. I mean, look at Devon. The reason he missed those first 3 months, asking for that 7-figure contract.
Yeah, that was
Eventually,
it.
he had to come back, and everything's going great.
Got close.
Devon had to make sure that he was set for life before he started.
Exactly. A few in the chat before we hit a break. 215 J Philly, what up? 215 J says, just give him 16 and go from there. Sean Ford says the walkaway number to me is 16, just above the full mid-level. Keep them under the second apron to potentially use the MLE as a trade chip at the deadline, plus minus 15% bonus to like the 18.5 mil or so in incentives there.
I know our friend Attila has a low walkaway number relative to the consensus, I believe.
Okay, in the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
Has not brought it up today. In
Okay.
Discord.
So there's another
This is a
chatting
running-
service. It's called Discord. We
Discord.
occasionally use it. He mentioned it in there, yeah.
Oh, okay, I have to check in on that.
I
one.
had someone replied to our show account that said 3 years, 20 million. They're going way under. They're saying
20 million total.
20 million total.
Wow.
Fourth option doesn't get more. This is from Bruce
Yes.
on Twitter.
Say no to that one, Quentin Grimes. I'm
Quentin,
with you on that.
If you get
one.
offered 3 for 20, take that qualifying offer, brother. That is disrespectful. I will use that word in that case.
Absolutely. And I saw a few more as I scrolled through here just to find. Jerome Evans says 16 a year. Sean again says, but firmly in the 16, 18, as he pointed out a little bit earlier. Anything higher, I'm looking to trade overall. And Kevin says this is easy. 18 gets it done or walk. And Winona says I like 20. She's around that 20 number. And we have quite a few. Brian says 3 for 38. Finally got a number here. So 3 for 38 for him. I don't know about the third year if that's a player or a team option or anything there. Just 3 for 38. And let me see as I scroll through. Jay, I mentioned 3 for 54. That's 18. Sounds about right. And that's pretty much where Theo says 2 for 30 with the metric tons of bonus options in there as well.
I wanted to also...
T. Harris, 17 and a half.
I think you mentioned him, NBA J, who said
Yes.
There's no cash available, and he thinks Grimes should bet on himself and take the qualifying offer, hit the market next offseason when there'll be more cash available. Here's the problem with that. I believe there are going to be a lot of guys, like big name players, who are potentially free agents next year.
Including shredded Luka Doncic.
So
including
LeBron, Kevin Durant, Luka, De'Aaron Fox. No, I think that's probably maybe he gets an extension. I think Draymond might be a free agent. I was going to say, Mikhail, I believe, if I remember correctly, is a free agent.
He's a free agent.
So there are lots of... This summer, there was not a lot of cash out there, but there also weren't a lot of big-name free agents who were on the market.
So he was at the top, but there was just no
So
money.
Jay, I understand where you're coming from. I think there will be more teams that can get in the mix next year. The question is, are they going to prioritize Quentin Grimes over, any? And those are just the top of the market, right? There will be guys who are probably in the Quentin Grimes tier of player who are also competing.
Who could have big years.
Right. So I'm not saying, I think there's some logic to doing it, right? If you just think I'm going to be much better, I'm more equipped than Jared McCain and VJ Edgecombe to be an impact role player right now. I can have another good year. Nick Nurse is going to be on the hot seat all year. He's not going to play rookies over me if he wants to keep. Like, I can get into his headspace and think about it. But I would say there is some danger to thinking, hey, there's more money available next summer. There's more money available, but there are also more players available who are more needle movers than Quentin Grimes is.
Absolutely. All right, we take our final break here on the show. We come back and we talk a little bit about VJ Edgecombe and his visit to his new Teammates podcast, Paul George, and some things that we took away from the conversation between George, Edgecombe, George's co-host, and what stood out. We'll talk about it on the other side right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by, tell you on the other side. That's Rothman Orthopedics. Yes, so good they're even in the chat predicting what's going to happen to one of the Sixers players with the contract. Not only are they good at that, they're also good at getting you back to doing what you love. We've all been there trying to power through the summer, especially when it's hot. Something happens, you might, cramp up a little bit here and it just won't go away. It's just a nagging thing that continues over the course of the week. And you say, you know what? I got to go get this checked out. PHLY Sixers podcast told me where to go. That's right. That's Rothman Orthopedics. Whether you're running on the beach, swinging your golf clubs, or lifting the little ones for a pool day, Rothman's specialists are here to help and to treat you with whatever's holding you back. Their top-tier care will have you moving and enjoying every minute of the summer while we still have it. Year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country at over 60,000. Count me in that 60,000 with my repaired Achilles right there at Rothman Orthopedics. It's not just the volume of over 250,000 of new patients and consults that Rothman is proud of, but instead it's their commitment to improving each of those patients' lives through their service and their care. So if pain is slowing you down this summer, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. Get to learn more there. Rothman Orthopedics, your summer, your mobility, their mission. Also, have to let you know about our good people at Parks Casino. And Parks Casino, whether your favorite team wins or not, there's always another way to win on the Bet Parks online casino app. We've been telling you about the casino. Let me tell you a little bit about the app right now because you're like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. It's too hot outside. Well, you can check out the brand new casino games like Huff and More Puff and Fire Blaze, Sky Queen at the Bet Parks exclusive right there on the app. Blackjack, roulette, craps, poker, baccarat, and hot online slots like Cash Eruption, 88 Fortunes, and Cleopatra Online. It's the only app I ever used to play all of my favorite casino games right there in the palm of my hand at the Parks Casino app right now. New users get up to $1,000 in casino bonus back if you are down in the first 24 hours. No worries there. Go to betparks.com and download the app right now and enjoy all the action and the excitement from the casino right at your fingertips. You must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for Bet Parks. You love to play, you love to win, and you play to win. You Bet Parks. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. We got to tell you, though, right now about the big deal, everybody. The big deal is presented by Cherry Hill Mitsubishi. I know people buy Mitsubishis elsewhere, Kyle.
I just don't know why, Devon.
Neither do I. Drive home in your new Jeep or your Mitsubishi today. Just minutes from all bridges or available online 24/7 at MitsubishiofCherryHill.com. And today, the big deal, we're a couple of days later because we wanted to wait for Derek to get back. Ricky Council waived by the
get
Philadelphia
'em, Rick.
76ers.
Just go get him elsewhere.
Go get a new gig somewhere, Rick.
First, can I just say, I love the from all bridges, and I'm just picturing a car dealership that every bridge in the world is just like converging onto Cherry Hill Mitsubishi. You go over London Bridge, and it's like, oh my God, how'd I end up in Cherry Hill? It's just like, I know what it means because I'm from the area. It just makes me laugh.
It's the big deal.
But yes, it's the big deal.
So January 10th, Derek, was the deadline for Ricky Council's contract to become guaranteed for the year. This would have been year 3 with the Sixers for Ricky as an undrafted player. Year 1, did enough to get a 4-year deal, and it was great. Great for him. It was great for our show content. It was fun to see him turn out. He had a pretty good summer league. But when they offered them more opportunity, Derek, to start the season off, especially with the injuries and all, he didn't really take advantage of that opportunity, and here we are.
No, he was awful. He was truly awful, and he shouldn't be. It is really frustrating watching him play basketball right now, and the more freedom he got, the more he turned into his worst instincts. His shot selection was just atrocious, and obviously his defensive rotations were something that we talked about a lot, knowing the concepts, needed to work on that. But if you can't be trusted out on the court, and he's not like, how old is he now? Like 20?
23?
Yeah, he's not like super young. If you're 23 and the coach fundamentally cannot trust your decision-making and you're shooting whatever he shot, like what do you shoot from 3? Like 20-something%? You're going to use that roster spot on something else. And it's not even about money. He's making the league minimum. It's just, you can't trust him. It was a really disappointing year for Ricky. Obviously he's a guy who he'll play with effort. He certainly has athleticism and physicality
that are at an
NBA level. But you've got to be able to make decisions that your coach trusts, and he never got there, and he was getting worse as the time went on.
Yeah, the big disappointment was just the amount of 30-foot threes he was bombing, which was there was no real reason for it, right?
No, he would just spot up 4 feet behind the line.
There are certain guys that you would actively coach to do that, right? Like Eric Gordon is the type of player that you spot him up from that range, teams will guard him out there. Teams are not guarding Ricky out there, and he was setting up there for ostensibly no reason. And
I know it would drive you guys nuts.
Yeah.
As we watch the game together.
But the big thing was exactly what I talked about it a lot heading into the year, that I thought the big thing that would hold him back if he was not going to break through was Nick Nurse doesn't trust him on either end of the floor, and specifically the defensive stuff. Didn't see marked improvement there. A lot of just where is Ricky at? Needs to be making this rotation or stay with this guy, and a lot of miscommunications when he was on the floor. Just the attention to detail stuff. The year before, it was good enough for him to just be, this kid comes in, plays hard, is a live athlete on a team that didn't have a lot of those. And he didn't play enough where a lot of the warts came to the forefront. Frankly, he also just shot the ball better. He was only taking, I think 1 3 a game, but he shot something 37-38% from 3 as a rookie. And so you said, oh, well, that was the big thing coming out of school. This guy's shot looks like it's fundamentally broken. If he can shoot at a reasonable level, he's such a good athlete and has some of these ancillary skills. This guy can be a real player. But as he was asked to do more and play more, he tried to carry himself, not like a role player, but someone that you're trying to play through. And so he, more than anybody else on the team, there were moments where you could see he made one play where it was like, oh man, that's a head scratcher. And you could look down the bench. It was like clockwork. Nick Nurse is already just pointing to somebody going, get in there, go to the scorer's table
Justin,
and get him
him
out of there. So Nurse's leash on him was very short as well.
You brought up the behind the 3-point line. I went through all of his attempts last year when the season was over. He shot 37.5% when he was from 22 feet to 24 feet on 3-pointers, which is the line. It's 22
very
feet
good.
to 23.9 feet, depending on corners and above the break. That's a great number. The problem is 75% of his attempts came from 25 feet or longer, and he shot 21.7% when he was shooting from 25 feet or more. No coach. There is no coach, I see Winona and they're blaming the trainers. There was no trainer on that team telling him to spot up from 25, 26, or 27 feet. That's like, if you are Dame Lillard, which is a shot we'll actually probably talk about a little bit later. If you're Dame Lillard, you spot up from 27 feet. Ricky Council shot 53 pointers from 27 feet or longer. That should never, ever, ever happen. And all of them were open. He was open at 24 feet. There was no reason to take 3-4 feet behind the line. He was just an unreliable decision maker, and he got more unreliable as his career went on.
I think the thing that also hurt him was Edwards came in as a rookie and is, to be fair, a much more natural shooter, like spot up guy, but was the picture of doesn't do too much, takes the open shot, makes the extra pass when it needs to be there, will attack a closeout, but is not like runaway freight train attacking a closeout. It's a quick 1-2 dribble move to the basket. And so when you're competing for minutes with someone like that, you also look much worse because here's this kid who's undrafted, who just joined the team, who's in a similar position to you, and is playing calm, is playing composed, is doing the things that the coaching staff is asking them to do. And when you're that's your direct competition for minutes, and you're playing off script and you're doing things that the coaching staff clearly doesn't want you to do, because when you do them, they're immediately yanking you out of the game. It just creates this spiral effect that he didn't recover from. So I hope he's a good kid and he's talented. Like, I hope he gets an opportunity.
That was going to be my question.
Somewhere.
Does he get an opportunity somewhere?
I mean, I think at minimum, he's
him?
going to get like a camp invite and somebody will try him out for like end of the roster.
Yeah.
Certainly good enough to be a two-way guy, but
could they have done him more of a favor by waiving him earlier?
But I think that's why they released him when they did.
Because of the two-way opportunities drying up elsewhere.
Maybe. I think, frankly, because they had until January, in theory, they could have let this go until January.
Sure.
I think a big part of why they did it was they're letting him have an opportunity to try to go elsewhere because the writing is just on the wall here.
Now, that January 10th date, that is when all non-guaranteed contracts become. So it's not like anything that's specific to his contract. I would have liked to have seen them release him a couple weeks ago. Like, they've had their roster in place. They knew where their salary situation was. I think releasing him, during Vegas or something would have been probably better, but he's a minimum contract guy.
Yeah. So one last time, unless he's on the team and he comes into Philadelphia and just does something and we just do it for show purposes. Go get him, Rick.
We'll always have,
and now we retire.
We'll always have the moment where he convinced Devon he had a sister named Rickiana.
I forgot about that.
That was great.
No, it's a shame because, okay, look, he plays bozo basketball. That doesn't mean he's a bozo. It just means he makes bozo decisions on the court.
Do you think he gets a job?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think he's got enough natural athleticism.
And he's still young.
And like I said, he generally plays hard. Not in control, not in the team concepts, but I think he plays hard. And he seems like a good kid. I just hope that he picks up what is a good shot and what is a shot he should never attempt again in his life.
That was the big deal presented by Mitsubishi of Cherry Hill. We appreciate it. Again, don't know why people buy, we know why people buy Mitsubishis. Kyle, we just don't know why they do it elsewhere.
I don't know why they'd buy them elsewhere.
Don't go elsewhere. Drive home in
All Bridges.
In your new Mitsubishi today, just minutes from All Bridges, or available online 24/7 at MitsubishiofCherryHill.com. All right, we'll keep an eye on Ricky and see what.
Do a salute to go get him, Rick.
Go get him, Rick.
Can't say that
one
anymore.
last time. We can't say it anymore unless he just does something in the game.
He was just such a breath of fresh air last year. I was like, oh my God, he can jump.
2 games
he can
in particular, though. That Washington game and that Spurs game where he just
that one wraparound
he won
pass.
the game.
Yep.
Yeah, he helped win those 2 games. And then this past year, the one I remember when we were at the gala, and I said to Rick, I was like, "Yo, man, what were you doing on that play?" He was like, "But I didn't travel." But that's the one that everybody's going to remember from the season is something like that instead of something good and all that stuff. So we'll see. All right, let's get to VJ Edgecombe on the Paul George podcast. We're not going to play any clips or anything like that, but it's just more of what we heard. Maybe you all saw it as well. Maybe you saw some clips online. And of some things that really stood out. I'll say this one first. I'll start off before I throw it.
You know where I'm going to go, so I'm curious where you're
going. Yeah, I'm just going to go. That dude, I didn't know he was as confident as he is listening to him talk. And he is really confident
Yeah.
in his ability to go out there and be the best player. When he realized, and he said after the first 5 minutes, like we talked about, and he made that layup in that game 1 against Utah, and then he said, wait a minute, Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey are not here. I am getting off my shots. And he did just that. He finished with 28 on 27 shots. All that, he looked really good in the game. He is super confident in his ability out there on the floor. That was the first thing that I took away from him.
And he said something similar about the national team too, where he's like, I got there and I wanted to fit in. And I'm like, nah, this is mine.
Yeah,
and he's
no
like,
way.
he's an 18-year-old kid
Yeah.
playing with NBA players.
Challenging Buddy Hield and like Buddy Hield.
And by challenging, I mean talking some serious trash.
Yeah. So people who are, VJ skeptics or whatever will be like, oh, whatever, it's Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield in the Bahamas is like, that's the
legend.
guy,
Yeah.
right? He is a big star there. So for a teenager
and we see
to
other
come
guys
in,
that are role players, like Carlos Arroyo is a prime example of when he plays for his national team, dude is dropping like 30 a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a real thing.
Yeah. So that jumped out. One of the other things related to what you're talking about with the confidence, the subject of his workout with the Sixers came up. And he was very funny about the report that came out from, I guess it was Jonathan Gavoni, right?
Gavoni, yep.
Gavoni reported that he might have appeared nervous, and VJ during the Paul George podcast was like, I thought that was weird. I thought I had a pretty good workout. That's somebody. I must have been at a different workout. I don't know. And so I thought that was, to your point, it's a kid that maybe I'm not disputing what Jonathan Gavoni said. He's very well plugged in. It's just funny how perception can change things, right? There's some people might look at him and say, oh, could have just shot poorly or worse than maybe he wanted to, and that was it. But certainly seems very self-assured. The thing that I really got a kick out of was very early in the podcast where he was like, man, I hated college basketball.
That was exactly where I was going.
That was my second one.
And so, look, we talked about it on the show, and a lot of times it was about Ace, right? That Rutgers was a terrible context for him and Harper. What is it going to be like for him and Harper as they get into NBA programs with more spacing, better offensive structure, so on and so forth? And we said many times, hey, VJ was not in the perfect structure either. So you have to apply the same, hey, what will this guy look like with real this and real that? And VJ in the first 5 minutes was like, God, it sucked. I was playing with two centers. There's no spacing.
They're planning in the paint.
I'm driving into three people all the time.
My coach wanted no mid-range shots, and I got two bigs in the lane.
And I was going to ask you about that because when he talked about the mid-range shots and you guys, mentioned it honestly a lot on the show when you guys were evaluating him. But he's like, yeah, my coach didn't want us taking mid-range shots.
Yeah.
And he pointed that out of how Scott Drew just didn't want him taking mid-range shots.
Yeah, so I thought that was, at least for me,
Yeah.
I felt validated. That's what I saw, right? And we talked about how Jared McCain, now Duke is generally offensively, they have a year in, year out better structure, certainly this past year. But Jared McCain talked about, he came in last year and was blown away at NBA level spacing, and VJ seems to be going through the early signs of that now. It's amazing that that's the worst spacing he's probably ever going to play with.
League.
He's playing with Janai Broom, who he referred to Janai Broom as, now granted, I get it. Janai Broom in college was incredible. So his perception of Janai Broom is, oh, this was the dude
This
in
is
college.
easy.
But Janai Broom is learning how to be a forward essentially,
and
shot
spacer.
pretty damn well at Summer League for a guy who's being asked to be more of a spot up guy. You're going to go from playing double big lineups in Summer League to you're playing with Maxey and McCain and Grimes and Paul George, and Justin Edwards will be the third or fourth best shooter in the lineup that you're playing with, right? So I think that was a big takeaway for me, certainly, that he seems already oh man, things are going to open up for me. And I'd said during the pre-draft, it was the hardest thing and always is the hardest thing for me to try to wrap my mind around when you're watching these guys and trying to project them. Who is going to benefit from the spacing and the degree to which they will, right? I always loved the first step. I loved the athleticism. But you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
You don't know until you can actually see them in an environment with other NBA guys. And so I've gotten way more excited about VJ, who I was high on, but way more excited on him from 2 games of Summer League basketball than I ever would have expected.
So you brought up the coach not wanting mid-ranges. Including regular season, postseason, all that. They took 883 point attempts last year, Baylor did. How many mid-range jumpers do you think?
How many threes?
880.
50? That's probably too low.
235.
35.
Wow.
That's one a game.
That's crazy.
That's not makes. That's attempts.
Wow.
Now, you gave me a fist bump. If we're playing
They
Price is
made
Right
11.
rules, I still went over. So both of us lost the
Well,
showcase,
you were way closer.
unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
So yeah,
crazy.
they did not take mid-range jumpers. That is not a lie.
Wow. But so the other thing for me too was Paul George saying, "Hey man, when you get there, just get there. Don't go in there and try to fit
Don't think
in.
about it.
Just go in there and play." And it brought me, when he said this in the podcast, it made me go back to our first day at training camp in the Bahamas in the availability, where I think it was Nurse who said it
Boy,
first.
they mistimed that training camp by a year.
Did they
by the
ever?
way.
I think Nurse said it first, but then when Embiid came back and Maxey said it, and they were like, Jared McCain was the best player in camp, and we're like, whatever. But they are empowering their young guys to come out there and being themselves and saying, you're going to have a role somewhere in this offense.
Yeah.
Come out there and be you. Go out there. Don't wait for us.
Yep.
Grab it and go.
That is the benefit of Paul George as a vet. We
Well,
saw he clearly wants other people to express themselves.
Well,
in
I
the
was just
game.
going to say, like, my primary takeaway was how much he hated college basketball in the space. And he talked about that not only when asked about college, but also when talking about the Bahama team. He was like, oh my God, there's room. My other takeaway is, like, Paul George being like the vet mentor is actually a thing.
It is.
And hearing him talk about it, I think the way he phrased it was like, we're not trying to change who you are. We just want to make you a better version of yourself. And not all teams empower 19-year-old rookies like that, even top 3 picks, especially not a team that has the talent, at least on paper, to win a lot of games. I think that's a great mindset for Paul to have. I think he's saying that behind closed doors. And this doesn't mean he's worth a max contract. You can get veteran mentorship in other ways. But when you have a guy who...
Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Maybe just one of them.
When you have a guy who young players look up to as much as young basketball players look up to Paul George, and he's also a good role model, it does have some tangible value.
Kyle, you brought up even with the Jabari Walker.
Yeah, I've said people can go watch it. There is a video from either last summer or 2 summers ago.
He was still with the Clippers wearing their gear.
Yeah. He had there's a long video. I think it's like 20 or 25 minutes long of him working out with Jabari Walker with a trainer in the summer, doing some detail work off the dribble and going through like very deliberate individual steps of this dribble move, this drive to the basket, this step back thing, and like going through that step by step by step with a guy who like is certainly far away from Paul George as an offensive player, and taking that time with the guy who is not a teammate, who he basically, as far as we know, doesn't have a relationship with other than you're working out with this guy. The fact that he's willing to do that for someone who he had basically nothing with at the time, I have said many times, I feel good about him as a voice and a leader for these young guys who are coming up. So I would agree with Derek that I think for VJ to come into this situation and hear that from him, we know that Maxey is obviously he's going to put both arms around him and show him the ropes and whatnot.
McCain, he's known him for a while. Yeah.
It's certainly a great environment for VJ, but also any other young player to come into to feel you don't have to be someone that you're not, right? You be yourself, you work on your game, there will be a spot for you here.
Absolutely. A few other things just with that. First, let's get to overtime. AllPHLY.com for the remainder of the show. We thank everyone on the Fast Channel, on the television side. We would appreciate it as always. Head over to AllPHLY.com to finish off this conversation. Quick news and notes as well as the roll call to round out the show.
Is this one going to go off the rails like yesterday's did?
No, not like that one. We'll get
It
your
would have
thoughts
gone
on
more
that
off the
too.
rails if I named the fake holiday that Devon learned about after the show
Me
was
and Bree
over.
would crack it up afterwards. But thank you on the fast side. Join us at allphly.com. All right. The other thing was just thinking about it again with him, I go back to the Utah game that he did play. I mean, the Las Vegas game that he did play. And then when we recapped it and we talked about the thing that we liked from the first half and the second half, scoring was the second half. It was the approach of the first half, even though he wasn't scoring, doing other things. And I always go back to you guys, that one play in particular where he hit, I think it was Keve Aluma in the corner for a three-pointer, struggling, drew the defense, spacing, and hit the open man in the corner for that three-pointer. When he played with the Bohemian national team, he played with Eric Gordon, Buddy Hield, and he brought up Klay Thompson, which I totally forgot about, just practicing with him right now in the offseason, but also being a part of that team. And the playmaking that could be there with him for Maxey, McCain, Grimes, George, Edwards, right, for the shooting that could be there for him next season. And hearing how he talked about it, and while not sabotaging the offense and just going to score, but he's also going to be a playmaker, he's had an opportunity to play with other people that can shoot the basketball where he knows how to find them on the floor.
Yeah. And then good teammate alert already. He was like, I thought the Dame Lillard shot that beat you, Paul, was a good shot, but now you're my teammate. Yeah. That's a bad shot.
I don't know how to answer that one.
So just
and him and Lillard are tight. So yeah.
Just seems like everything that we have heard about him seems like a good kid, hard worker who
it was a good conversation. Yeah, it was a good conversation.
And like, look, the workout stuff that he brought up with the nervousness or whatever. Honestly, a big part of the value that I think, I'm not speaking for the Sixers, but like the league as a whole, part of the value of bringing guys in beyond the medical, the interviews, all that is like how they interact with everybody, right? Because it's not to say that the person working the front desk is the same level of importance as Joel Embiid or Josh Harris or whoever. But teams take a lot from those little interactions where you don't have as much incentive to put on the good face and like be Mr. Sparkling personality for just like the random passerby, right? You're not in that mindset, but you learn a lot about people, about how they just treat people that are, this is just, hey, maybe it's the janitor at the facility. Maybe it's the guy at the cafeteria or whatever. And so when you bring people into your building, you just learn how they treat people, how much respect they show for people. And when you send that out to their career, right, it tells you at least a little bit about what is this guy going to be like in the middle of the season when things are going poorly.
Yeah.
When it's time to negotiate contracts and you're talking about, hey, I have to bench you to play somebody else who's playing better tonight. How do they respond to that? Like, you're trying to extrapolate these little meetings and these little interactions with people for what it's going to mean in this gigantic, butterfly effect of things that will happen over their career. And I think you just see in interviews like this where he's talking with Paul, when we talk to him in Vegas, on and off the camera, all the stuff that you hear and see from VJ is like, he's about the right stuff. And so when you combine that, Devon, with the, hey, I'm not shooting well, but I'm going to play a good floor game, I'm going to get after it and defend, you just feel good about having a guy who you think can be a real building block of the entire organization.
And to personalize it, building off of what Kyle said, when we had a chance to talk to him in Las Vegas, he was really cool. He was really...
Now, you're just saying that because he ducked a little bit.
Oh,
right?
the height thing? No, I wasn't even going to go there. It was just more of, while we were adjusting things because we had multiple conversations in that spot, he was patient. He was cool. He was, letting Bree do everything that she needed to do. He was just cool talking to us and just being him. And that first impression, though, Kyle, goes to the next time we see him at training camp, when we get a chance to talk to him on media day and hopefully get a chance there and sit down with him and build off of that a little bit and then see how it goes, as you pointed out, weeks later and see where things go with him. But he does seem like that conversation was fun to listen to with his teammate and to kind of get to know him a little bit more. Also, final one, and then we get to the news and notes. If you listen to Paul George after that workout, they knew they were taking VJ Edgecombe, at least if you listen to Paul George.
Even if it's not true, I respect the veteran leadership to be like, we were all in. Because that, again, that's just putting some more fuel. You're putting the battery in VJ's back. Like, oh, we knew we were taking
Yeah.
it. So even if that's a lie, I love that lie.
Because he
Good
said
job by Paul.
He couldn't stay. He and his family had already left. But when he checked in with the people who were there, he was like, oh, we knew it. We got our guy. Okay, Paul, maybe you're telling the truth. Maybe you're not. But again, put that battery in and let it ride, and we'll see where it goes from there. Good conversation, though. If you want to go listen to it, go check it out.
Also said, I can't believe you didn't bring it up. If he wins Rookie of the Year, he will not change his number.
He's not changing the number. He addressed the number thing with us on camera, too. And but he also made it seem like if they win, he's not changing it. He's also kind of waiting for Kyle Lowry to leave to take number 7. Yeah, you know, it's just
read between the lines there.
Yeah, just saying. All right, quick news and notes with the all-star guard of the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey is a New Balance athlete, everybody. If you don't already know, he's a New Balance athlete, and he has his own Tyrese Maxey pack dropping on Thursday with New Balance of both the off-the-court sneaker and the on-the-court sneaker. It drops Thursday, and we wanted to show everybody and get these two guys here, get their thoughts on what the sneakers look like for the Tyrese Maxey New Balance pack that we have here. So there you go. That's the off-the-court shoe.
Okay.
It's a really cool shoe.
Look at Carolina
Look
blue
at the colors,
on that.
right? And Bree, can you... there you go. So you can see
Those
Tyrese Maxey's
cream laces.
You can see Tyrese Maxey's signature logo in the insole of the sneaker. That's pretty good. Would you wear these sneakers? That's a pretty good one right there. I like that one. Would you wear these, Derek?
Yeah. I'm not super picky about my sneakers or super opinionated, but yeah, I'd wear those.
All right.
I have not put on a New Balance shoe.
That's
ever,
true. I don't know how
so
supportive
I'd
they
have
are.
to.
Yeah.
Part of the reason, and this is not free promo, but part of the reason I wear Nike shoes is I have long feet, but I have narrow feet, and they tend to have more narrow shoes. So that's why I've historically been a Nike guy.
Okay. All right. And the sneaker, the basketball sneaker is pretty much the same colorway, but just in the other way of the shoe. So these are pretty good. I would wear them because I get them. Well, first of all, I do wear New Balance, as you guys know. I would wear them because they send them to me too. I am part of the.
I would love to be part of the New Balance
I am
family.
part of the New Balance family a little
bit. If
bit.
you make me part of the New Balance family, I am happy to. I'll wear whatever you send.
So I would
All of a
wear
sudden,
them.
Devon is okay with free promotion.
Well, because they.
you
Well,
get free
congratulations to Tyrese on.
Yes.
A Tyrese Maxey exclusive
They
pack.
have the Tyrese
Interesting,
Maxey
by the
exclusive
way,
pack.
and this was pointed out by Sean Ford in the chat. UNC blue instead of Kentucky blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just more of he liked that colorway. That
Well,
one popped.
many people do. That's why they like North Carolina and
Yeah.
not Kentucky.
Yeah, so the
That's
basketball.
part of why I was into North Carolina as a kid.
The
Mostly
basket-
because I hated Duke, though.
Well, that too. Yeah, the basketball sneakers, the Tyrese Maxey Hezzy Low Volume 2, and the shoe itself, the sneaker itself, the off the court sneaker is the 1906R. That's the model number for the shoe. So just wanted to, Tyrese is a good dude. And when we were there, Tyrese was coming in. They come through the security in the back when we're in the back. Tyrese is always a good dude, like you always talk about.
Yeah.
You were busy. Derek was setting up some stuff. Tyrese saw me across all the way the other way, and he was like, just through security with all his people, he beelined over, said what's up, and then went back and went into the arena. That's the type of dude he is, and that's why when we do stuff like this, free promo, it's because of
It's for Tyrese. It's not for the shoe
it's
company.
because of the purpose of the person is a good dude. So they drop at 10 a.m. on Thursday. If you like them, go get them.
I will say, even if I had negative opinions on his shoes, he was just at like Paris Fashion Week. And if you can't tell from our attire here, there's only one person on this set who could maybe make an appearance at a fashion week. So I defer most of those opinions to both Tyrese, but also the guy in the middle of the set here.
Yeah, so shout out Tyrese for the it's cool because, again, while he may not have his signature shoe yet, he has his player edition of the shoe that is also
Gotta
a
make
big,
some all NBA teams.
it's a
brother,
big
and then
deal,
you
man.
Get the signature shoe.
Yeah, it's a big deal when you're able to do stuff like that. So shout out Tyrese New Balance.
When did Joel get the first one? How many years in the league was it before he got his first signature shoe?
That's a good question. I wish
Who?
I had the
Joel.
answer.
With Under Armour?
Yeah.
I think he got it.
Because he got colorways through Adidas when he was there, but he didn't get
So he
an
got the player
official-
edition colorways.
Yeah.
But
I remember the shoe. I just
the
don't
Under
remember
Armour
when it was.
That was probably like year
yeah.
5
I
after
was
the
gonna say
Adidas
4 or 5,
contract
yeah.
was up, and then he got that one. Do you have them?
I do. I do
Yeah.
have a pair. Yeah.
Yeah. You have them too? Were you there?
I think so. Yeah, because we did there was a whole event for it. And
Yeah. I still have mine. The box is still dope. I kept
Yes.
the box because the box is
Yep.
fantastic. Yes. All right, let's get to the world famous as we wrap things up on a Tuesday. It's the roll call, everybody.
thank you, everybody, for being here, including Derek after a long, intentional or unintentionally long hiatus. Some of it was
Trust
planned.
me, I would have rather been
Some of
working
it was
last week.
not. Thank you to Derek for joining us once again on the show. Thank you to Devon for being here. I can't thank.
Shout out Rothman for being in the chat.
Look at that. The sentient orthopedics
Yes.
company in the chat today. Thank you to Rothman, as always.
Taking a break from fixing people up to get in the conversation.
Fixing our chat, too.
That's right.
Look at that. Look at Rothman. What can't they do, Devon?
It's nothing
Cure
they
you
can't
guys
do.
of your post-Vegas flu. Thank you to everybody who was here today. Thank you to Jesse Bond, to Theo, to Lee Nguyen, to Val, to
Hey, Val.
Eugene Ross.
You're never late, Val. Good to see you in the chat, Val.
Money Marr, Sean Ford,
What up, Sean?
Mom's grandchildren. What's up to Mom? What's up to Aaron?
What
What's
up,
up to my
Aaron?
girl Nona, who I believe is on
She's on the way.
Amtrak on the way down for the film session. We will see you soon, Nona. Marcus Blackstock, Brian Knight,
B Night. What up, Mark?
Colby Colbs.
Great
in the
show,
building.
Kobe, as always.
Colby always has a great show. NBA Jay was in here, was very active, but left a little earlier. So shout out to NBA
What up, Jay?
who asked, what's the link to the Discord? And I said, Devon, that's for our diehards
gotta give us
only.
money.
So NBA Jay, there was a deal, is a deal.
There is still a deal.
I believe there is a deal.
$36. Go sign up, Jay. Perfect time.
PHLY.com. Check out that diehard discount while
Perfect
it's still
time.
available. Rick Morse was here. We'll say hello to Rick Sachs as well. Jay to Jungle. Hello to Jay to Jungle.
What up, Jay?
Dave P. Lost Sleep TV. All our wonderful friends were here. Elaine Bruno, Jack Reacher,
What up, Lane?
SB Cole, Jerome Evans. I haven't
Romy
seen
Rome.
the letter M. Is it in here today? The 76th man.
The great agent you are, M.
I haven't seen Bootzilla today. There's a little bit of static with Bootzilla in the chat yesterday.
That was
yesterday. So Boots,
You know,
we're thinking of you. We love you.
come on
It's
back.
okay to. It's all in the family. People were arguing. It doesn't mean anyone is mad at you. Hello to Boots. Hello to Hedva.
What up, Boots?
I mean, can you imagine
Boots!
if like we disappeared every time we got mad at each other? You'd
Listen.
never have a show.
215 J Philly. Hello to everybody. Thank you to everyone for stopping through today. Please, on the way out, could you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications
Too late.
each and every time we go live. And of course, as a thank you to super producer Bree,
Yes.
who always holds it down, please hit the thumbs up button to help us out in the algorithm and share your appreciation for what Bree brings to the show. Guys, we will have our film session tonight with a select few of you who signed up. Tomorrow we'll be back at 3 p.m., our normal show time, for God knows what. We'll see what we're talking about tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves. We'll see you then.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.